The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Director Gabbard, thank you very much for this. You have thought on this legal decision this morning, a great win for America and all that goes with it, ma'am. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, it is a great day and a great victory on the side of the American people and the Constitution, and yet again, shining a light on one of the other forms of weaponization of the government against President Trump and ultimately against the American people. As you pointed out, this lawfare happened throughout the course of his candidacy and running for president in 2024, and we saw everything in the kitchen sink thrown at him as his political opponents sought to take away the right of the American people to make the decision for themselves who they wanted to serve as our president and commander-in-chief. The people's voices won resoundingly in this election, and this decision today once again reinforces that lawfare has no place in America. Indeed.
And, you know, from your perch now, you get to see a lot. And you've been declassifying a lot of materials, which I think people appreciate very, very much. As you look at this story, is there any doubt in your mind? You talk about the deep state. In many ways, I would argue the deep state started with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and it kind of moved on from there out into the CIA and out into the DNI and out into the FBI. I mean, that seems to be what your declassified materials are showing. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, sure. The deep state, unfortunately, has existed within our government and within the intelligence community for much longer than it precedes President Obama. It precedes Hillary Clinton. I'll go back to kind of the first example in my own life that was an eye-opening experience when the deep state was activated, and specifically James Clapper had a hand in this, in the manufacturing of intelligence, claiming that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to justify, under the Bush administration, going to war. What was interesting is we look at what happened then, and I served in Iraq along with well over 1 million service members over the course of that war. And then you fast forward to the weaponization of intelligence that we just exposed recently over the last few weeks, claiming that Putin aspired to help Trump get elected in 2016, which the intelligence did actually not reflect. This was politically motivated weaponization. And the fact that James Clapper was President Obama's director of national intelligence at that time, and then you go back, more than 20 years prior to that, when James Clapper himself wrote in his book that his fingerprints were all over that fake Iraq WMD intelligence assessment. And he specifically said that he was a part of the team that found something that was not there. So unfortunately, the deep state has been firmly entrenched within our government. Under President Trump's leadership, we're getting after it and doing our very best to root out those bad actors.
I want to come back to that, rooting out the bad actors. But, you mentioned that Clapper talking about something that wasn't there. Let me just play a quick clip. We had Kash Patel on last evening. Here's what he had to say about the invasion of Mar-a-Lago, strikingly similar to what you just said about Clapper. Here it comes. Take a listen, please.
Creating a crime where one did not exist. The answer has been definitive. There was no crime. There was no predicate to go and invade Donald Trump's home. Working backwards from that point, we are going to hold people accountable who weaponize that system of justice for the following reason. It was completely false. It was completely unconstitutional pursuant to our judicial courts.
Director Tulsi Gabbard, it's interesting. That was his answer. I asked him what the FBI was doing in Mar-a-Lago. And he said creating a crime where none existed. You made a strikingly similar comment about Clapper. I think that's really something. And I think to some extent that's what all these stories are all about. You have a political bias. It's anti-Trump, okay? It can be anti-Republican. I don't know. But the political biases of the deep state, they're creating crimes that didn't exist all across the board. But unfortunately for them, they're getting called on it. It's all coming to the surface, and it was all nonsense. That's what you're showing. You're cutting what? 40% of your staff you're cutting down. You just knocked out 37 people, they're national security people. You're getting rid of it. It sounds like you're getting rid of it.
Yes, this is first an important step that we took yesterday in announcing what I've called ODNI 2.0. This organization that I lead was created in the wake of the egregious intelligence failures around the Islamist terrorist attack on 9/11. It was created around recognizing in hindsight what happened with that manufactured intelligence of Iraq WMDs under President Bush, in order to have an oversight element across the intelligence community that roots out that politicization, that ensures that the intelligence that's being collected is being integrated. The left hand is talking to the right hand, and ultimately that the President of the United States is getting intelligence products that are timely, that are relevant, and that are apolitical and objective. So what I found in my organization that I'm leading currently was that there were a lot of pockets where the deep state actors were very entrenched and were politicizing their centers or their positions, either against the American people, using their authorities to force censorship on Americans, for example, under the Biden administration, who dissented with Biden's policies, or those who essentially were in positions where they're creating intelligence products and inserting their own partisan political opinions and views in the intelligence documents. It's very simple. The mandate the intelligence community has is to find the truth and to tell the truth. We see in too many cases, not only in ODNI, but across the intelligence community, that is not the case.
Director Gabbard, do you think that you will be able to say after a certain point in office, certain time in office, that you got rid of all those people in the so-called deep state in the intelligence world who schemed against Donald Trump with respect to Obama and Hillary and Russiagate and all the hoaxes and the invasion of Mar-a-Lago? I know you're paring back their security clearances. I know you're cutting back on staff. Do you think you'll be able to say at some point you got rid of all of them?
Well, Larry, I'm not at all naive to, again, what we just talked about, how deeply entrenched the deep state actors are. And when we talk about the deep state actors, it's a term that's commonly used. Maybe folks don't always know who or what we're referring to. What I'm referring to are those who sit within our government, yes, within the intelligence community, but I can tell you, as I speak to my colleagues in the Department of Justice and the FBI and these other agencies, there are deep state actors across the federal government, and they are people who, like Vindman, for example, who believe that their actions, their views are more important than those of elected leaders, duly elected by the American people, like the President of the United States. These are dangerous people because they believe their views and opinions supersede the United States Constitution that they all swear an oath to uphold, to support, and defend, and that their views and opinions supersede those, again, who are elected by the American people, specifically the President of the United States. So I'm going to do my very best every day that I have the privilege of serving our country in this role under President Trump's leadership to root out those bad actors and to try to bring about that institutional change so that this is not something that the American people are continually faced with.
Tulsi, you've declassified a lot so far. Do you intend to declassify other information?
Yes, without a doubt. There are so many areas that we have just started to shine a light on in places that have never seen the light. It's important for the American people. They deserve to know the truth, and the truth and that transparency is what can be used to lead to actual accountability. That's how real change comes about.
And you're working with the Justice Department, and they're going to be, I mean, I know there's, I think I know there's at least one grand jury set up. I'm not sure that's public yet. I'm not sure the public knows all that is going to happen there. But you're working with the Justice Department, Attorney General Bondi, to prosecute?
I am working with the U.S. attorney that's been assigned to by the Department of Justice and his team specifically to deal with the evidence that we have found and collected and declassified and released. The criminal referral that I made to the Department of Justice around President Obama's directed intelligence assessment that, as we said before, created something that was not there. This was the foundation of the Russia hoax. And it really was the document, again, ordered by President Obama, carried out willingly and excitedly by John Brennan and James Clapper and others, that laid that served as the document for everything that continued on in President Trump's first administration, the investigations, the impeachments, the surveilling, the harassment, everything that happened next really fundamentally came from and was rooted in this fake intelligence document that President Obama ordered be created.
All right. Well, we thank you. Wish you luck on the job, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. We appreciate you coming on very much.
Great to see you.